Coming up on Currents News, party primaries. New York City is off to the races, but the results could take some time. We have team coverage.
They might take the longest in Big Apple history, especially the mayor's race, with ranked choice voting on the ballot for the first time. I'm Jessica Easthope with the pulse of the polls.
Violence citywide is one of the top concerns. Another broad daylight attack on the streets of New York. Then Religious Freedom Week kicks off. Catholics around the world taking a stand for the freedom on which this country was founded.
We've won several cases on religious freedom over the past several years, and we want to keep that track record going.
And America's pastime. We're at the ballpark, but it's Catholic school students on the mound. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Michelle Powers. Christine Persichetti is off. Voters across the board agree the Big Apple needs big changes, but who can lead the city out of shutdowns, rising violence, and economic devastation? That's the big question at today's primaries. Chances at mayor, comptroller, and public advocate are all up for grabs. But we won't have any answers soon as New York City tries out a ranked choice system for the first time. Currents News' Jessica Easthope spent the day with voters outside the Brooklyn Museum.
Voters have been steadily streaming in all day, saying healthcare, COVID recovery, and jobs are among the top concerns that brought them to the polls this primary election. But it was one single issue people agreed the city's next leader needs to tackle.
Personally, for me, is seeing housing.
Affordable housing, probably the most important issue.
Affordable housing.
A lot about housing.
The housing crisis.
They call New York City home. So these voters want someone to help them stay.
And you see a lot of them hanging on the street in front of buildings where they used to live.
It's a new system of voting, is ranking.
Tuesday was the first brush with ranked choice voting. People were asked to list their 5 favorite candidates, but could opt out and still only choose one. Some were taken by surprise.
I'm a bit intimidated by ranked choice. I've never really dealt with anything like that before.
But others came prepared, saying the strategy is a political game changer.
I actually found it to be a pretty easy process, and I was happy that we had a couple of choices.
With no presidential race or congressional seats up for grabs, turnout in this primary to decide who would continue in the races for comptroller, public advocate, and mayor was expected to stay low. In the 2017 mayoral race, only Democrats voted in the primary. Just 15% of them cast ballots. But now, with heavy-hitting issues like crime, economic recovery, and social justice reform facing New York City, voters say they needed their voices heard.
Less crime, better education, more social justice.
And despite Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams leading the polls, voters we spoke with said he wasn't necessarily their frontrunner.
I ranked Maya Wiley first.
I think Maya has a grasp on it.
As far as criminal policy or criminal justice policy, I voted for Maya Wiley.
Maya Wiley has a good idea. Take some money and put it towards mental health issues because a lot of the crime has been done by homeless people who are not well.
I've always been impressed with Maya Wiley because of her legal position in the de Blasio organization. And it's helpful to have somebody who understands from the inside out what really needs to change.
Voters across New York City can cast their ballots tonight until 9 p.m. In Park Slope, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
And let's take another quick look at the latest polls as they are almost set to close tonight. Where do the candidates stand right now? According to data for Progress pollsters, Eric Adams is leading with 26%. Behind him, Maya Wiley at 21%, Catherine Garcia at 18%, Andrew Yang at 12%, and Scott Stringer at 5%. 6% of voters remain undecided. Like Jessica explained, even after the polls have closed, it could still be weeks before New Yorkers know who the Democratic candidate is. Currents News' Christine Persichetti explains what the holdup could be.
Let's get started.
Voting in the New York City Democratic primary for mayor started early. Even so, the end is not near.
This is not only a race for the mayor of New York. This is a race to save our city.
But the race could be a slow one. The results may not be known until July. If you're wondering why, well, for one thing, election officials have to wait for thousands of absentee ballots and then count them. They're not due until a week after primary day. Secondly, the city is using ranked choice voting for the first time, which complicates things.
I believe in the promise of New York.
One promise from election officials: you will get information throughout the process. This is how it will go. Only New Yorkers' first choice votes will be counted right away. If one candidate wins 50% of the first choice votes, you have a winner. But with a pool of 13 Democrats, that's unlikely. So we go to the rankings. The last place candidate will be eliminated. If your first choice candidate does not win and they're eliminated, your second choice vote will be counted and added to that candidate's total. That cycle continues until we have a winner. The city's Board of Elections plans to reveal the first round of ranked choice results a week after the primary, June 29th, on its website, and will continue to update the results once a week. So it is possible we may not know who New York City's Democratic mayoral candidate will be until the week of July 12th.
New York, we've got a big choice to make.
In Windsor Terrace, Christine Persichetti, Currents News.
All right, so perhaps that means primary night coverage is over, but it's being replaced with primary night weeks. Joining us now to make sense of it all is St. John's political analyst and professor Brian Brown. Brian, how are you?
Good to be with you.
So we just saw that poll, but primary elections are tricky to predict in the best of times, and now we have this new voting system. What do you think of Eric Adams' chances? He may be polling #1, but it doesn't seem he has a popular second and third choice pick. What do you think?
Well, he has run a very effective campaign thus far, but unlike other candidates like Catherine Garcia and Andrew Yang, he has not embraced this new strategy of really teaming up and having another candidate campaign out there with you to get more of that appeal.
Yeah, and I want to get to Adams and Garcia, but first let's talk about ranked choice voting. We are by far the largest jurisdiction to implement it, which means we're under the spotlight today. It's kind of scary, but going in, did you think enough people really understood the process? And what's your personal opinion about ranked choice voting?
I think ranked choice voting is a good idea, but we're really diving into the deep end of the pool with the mayoral primary. Voters will learn. They're going to learn very quickly about it. There has been some good educational materials out there. The tablet, you've seen ads on TV trying to teach people how to do it. But I think it's important to recognize that most of the delay is coming because of New York state law. There are statutory requirements that mandate how and when ballots are postmarked and how long you can wait before you count them. So it's easy to blame the Board of Elections and the New York City Board of Elections, and they'll be under the spotlight, but they're really adhering to state law. It's important to recognize, though, the person you see tonight on the leaderboard may not be the person who crosses the finish line because of the way ranked choice voting works, and that really emphasizes the importance of everyone getting out to vote.
Now back to Yang and Garcia. Of course, there's pros and cons to ranked choice, but let's talk quickly about what we saw from them over the weekend. A sort of horse trading. Yang and Garcia formed a late alliance saying, you can vote for both of us. Obviously, that didn't sit well with Eric. But what about the idea of one person, one vote?
Well, I think what they did was strategic and effective in a ranked choice election. Catherine Garcia was very coy, and she basically said that she wants as many supporters as she can. Andrew Yang was a little bit more transparent, saying vote for me first and her second. But you still have a kind of one person, one vote. You just have more of a choice to choose from and to spread it out over these different rounds.
All right, that's for sure. Brian, we'll check in with you when we have declared a winner. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Now we've heard it from the mouths of voters. One of the biggest concerns is safety and curbing city violence. But new video shows yet another brutal broad daylight attack. This time it was actually an off-duty officer who was the victim. You can see the assailant surround him outside a bodega in Hunts Point. Police say the officer was hit with both a broomstick and a baseball bat, though the bat isn't shown in this video. He was taken to the hospital with head, back, and knee pain. Police are still searching for the suspects and investigating the incident.
This afternoon, the children, their sister and their parents, Dorana Luna and Christian Torbio, are guests of the Yankees who stand with them.
At the same time, the two innocent children who were involved in that other disturbing broad daylight attack were honored at a Yankee game. The siblings were mere inches away from a shootout in the Bronx when the victim toppled over them on their way to a candy store. Thankfully, the kids were not physically hurt. Police are still looking for that gunman. Suspected looters and rioters that pillaged the city last summer are seeing their charges dropped. NYPD data shows more than 200 of the looters arrested in Midtown and Soho last year had their cases completely dropped, while others were charged with lesser counts. Business owners are blasting the move, saying the system has failed them and violence is king. And from New York City to the White House, concerns are growing there as authorities warn about the likelihood of a bloody summer in cities across the country. President Biden is planning to address the issue tomorrow afternoon, announcing what's being called a comprehensive crime reduction strategy. Still, the White House has been quiet about any specifics, but sources say the president is likely to highlight funding for law enforcement and initiatives to cut down on criminal activity. In the meantime, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of student athletes over the NCAA. A group of college athletes sued the agency for violating antitrust laws. As it stands now, the NCAA allows schools to pay for expenses related to education, like tuition and books, but that's it. And student athletes don't get any of the billions of dollars generated from ticket sales, TV contracts, or merchandise featuring their likeliness. Notre Dame's athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, has been outspoken in his support for student athletes being able to profit off their likeliness. He even prevented the school from being part of a college football video game because athletes wouldn't benefit from being in it. Students from across the Diocese of Brooklyn are heading to Cyclone Stadium in Coney Island to celebrate academic home runs. The top students will be honored under the big lights for their outstanding grades. The event is sponsored by both the Diocese of Brooklyn and DeSales Media Group, the parent organization of Currents News. Emily Druby has more from the field ahead of game time.
Michelle, I'm in Coney Island getting ready for one of the most exciting nights in the Diocese of Brooklyn, Catholic Schools Night. Now, last year we were unable to have it because of the pandemic, but now we are back. I'm here with Joanne DiNapoli from DeSales Media Group. She really helped put this together. And Steve Cohen, he's the general manager of the Brooklyn Cyclones. Now, Joanne, why is tonight such an exciting night?
We get to honor the valedictorians and the salutatorians of the Brooklyn and Queens elementary schools, then they rightfully deserve it this year.
And why is it so important to honor these students?
Well, I think it's important to honor these students that did so well in school and during a very difficult, trying year. We all know the situation they faced, and they get to come out, get on in front of their friends and family and a couple of thousand Cyclones fans.
Right, they went from not being able to see their friends, now they get to see all of their friends in the same place. We also have a very special bobblehead here today. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's for?
This is to commemorate Ed Wilkinson. And it's an Ed Wilkinson bobblehead, editor emeritus of the tablet, and he will be here tonight to sign these bobbleheads, so get him while you can.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And Michelle, we will have a full wrap of tonight's festivities tomorrow during the show. From Coney Island, Emily Druby, Currents News. Back to you.
Thanks to one of the Diocese of Brooklyn's most prestigious groups, local Catholic school students are getting a little help paying their tuition. At the 2021 Speakers Night and Installation Dinner, the Cathedral Club, one of the largest Catholic lay organizations in the diocese, gave $12,000 scholarships to 5 students. Monsignor David Casado, the vicar for Catholic schools in the diocese, spoke at the event and said the help is especially needed in this trying time.
A lot of families are having issues because of the pandemic and job loss and all sorts of issues, and they don't want to give up their Catholic school. And this benefit tonight is a real great sign of the Cathedral Club's caring for our kids in Catholic schools.
Each year, the Cathedral Club donates $20,000 to support Catholic education. There's a lot more news headed your way. Religious Freedom Week. The Catholic Social Services case is being called a big Supreme Court win. But is it really? Then, a woman on a mission to befriend those on Skid Row. It's day one of Religious Freedom Week, 7 days devoted to Catholics praying, reflecting, and promoting religious liberty. The days are broken up into themes that need our attention. Today's topic, adoption and foster care. The issue is taking a new meaning following a Catholic Social Services major win in the Supreme Court. Currents News' Emily Druby takes a closer look at that case.
A unanimous Supreme Court ruling being called a victory for religious freedom. SCOTUS ruling in favor of a Catholic foster care agency in Philadelphia, saying that the city refusing to work with Catholic social services because of a faith-based practice they follow violates religious liberty.
This is a victory for our beautiful city and for all of the children in our community who are counting on us to give them a fighting chance.
That's Tony Sims Bush. She was one of the plaintiffs, along with fellow foster care mom Sharonelle Fulton. Both are Catholic.
Their faith motivates all aspects of their work. Their approach to ministry results in stronger foster families, families who can continue to serve those in need.
The case started when Catholic Social Services contract with the city was frozen. The agency's religious objections prevented them from placing children with same-sex couples. The law sparked a battle that spanned years, making it all the way to the High Court based off the idea that the city violated the First Amendment. Now the agency and 2 foster moms can finally rest easy. All 9 justices ruled in favor of Catholic Social Services, saying Philadelphia was forcing them to violate their religious beliefs. The opinion written by Chief Justice John Roberts, who said CSS just wants to continue serving children while staying true to their religious beliefs, not to impose those beliefs on others. The Beckett Fund, which defends religious liberty, represented the moms and CSS in the case.
Every single Supreme Court justice said that religious freedom is not a second-class right. It's front and center, the bedrock of our Constitution and our freedom in America.
Still, some of the more conservative justices, including Samuel Alito, think the decision could have done more to solidify religious liberty. As part of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, Catholic Social Services has been serving the city for over 200 years. Through this ruling, they can now continue to do so. In Brooklyn, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Joining us now to speak more on this case is the former chairman of the United States Bishops' Committee on Religious Liberty, Archbishop Thomas Bensky from the Archdiocese of Miami. Archbishop, how are you?
Very good. It's good to be here with you.
All right, let's look at this decision. It's a bit complicated. It's being seen as a victory for religious liberty, but at the same time, some feel more could have been done. Justice Samuel Alito, a Catholic, wrote that the ruling was too narrow. Do you agree?
Well, it was narrow, but it was nevertheless still a victory for religious freedom, because what it gave Philadelphia, the Catholic Charities of Philadelphia, the right to resume its offering of adoptions with the city of Philadelphia. They said that Philadelphia basically discriminated against Catholic Charities, and it didn't have to do that. Now, it's narrow because it doesn't, well, it was narrow, I think, partly because this Chief Justice wanted to get a unanimous decision. All 9 justices supported the decision, which I think is a good thing for religious freedom, because it continues a streak of positive decisions on religious freedom coming from the Supreme Court, highest court of our land.
Right, let's take a look at what he said even further. Justice Alito said this decision might as well be written on the dissolving paper sold in magic shops. If the city wants to get around today's decision, it can simply eliminate the never used exemption power. If it does that, then voila. Today's decision will vanish and the parties will be back where they started. Now, do you think this is the future of religious freedom? Like we said, very narrow rulings and no landmark opinions, meaning ones that'll change the interpretation of existing law. Is this kind of what we have to settle for religious liberty wins?
Well, I don't think it's going to be settled for it. I think this decision, narrow decision, is a victory. We have to take victories when we find them. But at the same time, because it was such a narrow decision, we'll be back in the courts again. And and we'll come back to the courts, and hopefully we will prevail. But we will prevail maybe with just a 5-4 decision. But I think we can't discount the positive effect of having this unanimous decision for religious freedom, because it helps build up memento. And we've won several cases on religious freedom over the past several years, and we want to keep that track record going, because again, as everybody knows, as the ascendant secularism of our time is increasingly hostile to people of religious faith. And if they're not hostile, then they look at us with somewhat of a cold indifference.
Speaking of that hostility, a lot of secular news outlets have been reporting that the case pits gay rights against religious freedom rights. What is your response to that?
Well, even the city of Philadelphia had to admit that Catholic Charities never denied any gay couple access to adoption, because no gay couple applied through Catholic Charities. And at the same time, there were about a couple dozen, or at least a dozen, maybe 20 other agencies in the Philadelphia area that would have provided that service to a gay couple. There's no harm done to the gay community.
All right, Archbishop Weinski, as always, thank you for joining us. We will check back in with you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
And stay with Currents News for continuing coverage of Religious Freedom Week tomorrow. The theme is Catholic Social Service. We'll be checking out a soup kitchen that continued operating all pandemic long. Still to come on Currents News, she's bringing beauty to the streets. Meet the woman who's providing makeup to those on Los Angeles' Skid Row. Finally tonight, Los Angeles has a homeless population that tops 65,000. And while many may look the other way, one woman is putting herself squarely in the epicenter of the crisis, Skid Row. She says she lends a hand and an ear, understanding their pain and loss after losing her 2-year-old son. Meet Shirley Raines.
It is just being seen, being touched, being cared for. You want a face mask? It plants a little bit of self-esteem in them, so they feel like, okay, maybe no one knows I'm homeless because I have a fresh cut. Good to see y'all. Happy Saturday, King. I address them as kings and queens because that is who they are. We want to make them feel beautiful. What you want? Hair? No. Haircut? Hair? Okay. When they say they're broken, I am too. They're like, how did you get fixed? I'm not. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you things are going to be better now. But what I am going to do is feed you while you're out here. What I am going to do is do your hair. What I am going to do is give you a hug. What I am going to do is encourage you and speak life into you. And that's what I can do. That was Mickey on the mic, you guys. Give her a hand.
And that is Currents News. I'm Michelle Powers. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.